When I graduate from universities, and before for 3 years I tried to fill in the universities. So I applied jobs for 30 times, got rejected. I went for a police, they said, no, you're not good. I went to even the KFC. When KFC come to China, come to my city, 24 people went for the job. 23 people accepted. I was the only one guy. And we went for police. 5 people, 4 of them accepted. I was the only guy that I received it. So to me, being turned down, rejected. Oh, by the way, I told you that I applied for Harvard for 10 times, rejected. I know I'll be rejected. I just want to say that.
It's not the technology. I think technology is a tool. The core competence of our companies, we have 20,000, grow from 18 people to now 20,000 young people. And we focus a lot on the value and the mission and making sure the culture, everybody work for helping others instead of just making money.
People don't like it. So many people I talked to at that time for Alipay, they say, this is the stupidest idea you have ever got. But I say, I don't wear the stupid clever as long as people use it. Now we have 800 million people using this Alipay. I learned a lot of things from movies. I learned how to make a speech from the movie called Bodyguard, Whitney Houston. When she sings the songs, I look at her, wow, that's the way that you make a speech, because I never know how to make speech, because I'm not an actor. But when I saw the movie, I say, wow, if you sing from your heart, if you sing naturally, if you're yourself. So I realized, and I learned a lot from the movies, even learned from the Godfathers. I learned, my favorite movie is Forrest Gump, These are the things I learned so much. Then we discuss about the muse, the inspirations we got from movies.
What kinds of business ideas have you said no to?
I'm saying no to a lot of ideas because as a CEO, I have to say no to opportunities. Because if I say yes, I probably get 5,000 opportunities every day. But whether yes or no, everything based on the mission that we're helping doing business easier. If it's on that, we will consider. If somebody coming and saying, we will, have this deal, will make a lot of money, I'm not interested.
Alibaba? Well, when I started, I think internet is global. We should have a global name. And a name that interesting, like at that time, the best name is Yahoo. Right? So I've been thinking for many days, suddenly think Alibaba is a good name. So I was happened to be in San Francisco that day. I have a lunch and a waitress come. I asked her, do you know about Alibaba? She said, yes. I said, what is Alibaba? She said, Open Sesame. Good. So I went on the street, asked about 10, 20 people. They all know about Alibaba, 40 Thieves, and Open Sesame. And I think this is a good name. And start with A. Whatever you talk about, Alibaba is always top.
We believe the co-company different from the Wall Street. We believe customer number 1, employee number 2, shareholder number 3.
Customer 1, employee 2, shareholder
number
3.
Yeah, again, this is my religion. It's the customer that pay us the money. It's the employees that drive the innovation. It's the shareholder, and the shareholder always say, I remember the day before we IPO, and a lot of people say, Jack, can I keep us the shares? We were long-term shareholders. But when the crisis came, these guys run as soon as
they ran away.
They ran away. My people stayed, customers stayed.
And I want to tell the young people, when most people complain, where the opportunity is. People start to complain. Some people complain. People start to change themselves, changing others. Where the opportunity is where the complaints are. Where the trouble, where is the opportunity. And I always believe that.
When I was 12, I hated school, but I fell in love with trading the markets. I caddied at the time, earned about $5 a bag, and I took my caddying money and I put it in the stock market. And that was just because the stock market was hot at the time. And the first company I bought was a company by the name of Northeast Airlines. Northeast Airlines was the only company I heard of that was selling for less than $5 a share. And I figured I could buy more shares, and if it went up, I'd make more money. So that was a dumb strategy, right? But I tripled my money. I tripled my money because I got lucky. The company was about to go bankrupt, but some other company acquired it, and I tripled my money. And I was hooked. And I thought, this game is easy. With time, I learned this game is anything but easy. In order to be an effective investor, one has to bet against the consensus and be right. And it's not easy to bet against the consensus and be right. One has to bet against the consensus and be right because the consensus is built into the price. And in order to be an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, one has to bet against the consensus and be right. I had to be an entrepreneur and an investor. And what goes along with that is making a lot of painful mistakes. So I made a lot of painful mistakes. And with time, my attitude about those mistakes began to change. I began to think of them as puzzles, that if I could solve the puzzles, they would give me gems. And the puzzles were, what would I do differently in the future so I wouldn't make that painful mistake? And the gems were principles that I would then write down so I would remember them that would help me in the future. You know, from a very early age, the whole idea of being right is so rewarded, whereas learning from mistakes doesn't have its place, right? So a kid studies, you're smart, 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 you take the examination, and okay, you do badly, but life's not like that. Life is mostly a matter of making your mistakes and knowing how to evolve past those mistakes and learn.
You guys have an extraordinary track record of winning.
Yeah.
Is it harder to compete in the markets today than it has been since you founded Bridgewater?
No, I don't think so.
Really?
Not the way we do it. And the reason I'm saying not the way we do it is we don't take systematic biases. I think for a lot of people, they're systematically long everything, you know? And so we have a world in which when the world gets bad, it's bad for them. In 2008, it was great for us. I don't know, we had nearly 10% return in 2008. So we have the opportunity to go either way. We just may be wrong if we're wrong. So I'm so scared about being wrong that it has helped reduce my chances of being wrong because I'm so scared. I won't take bets that that I don't feel good about, and we diversify our portfolio, and that's how we have the track record. I think in the average investor, most everybody, don't compete against pros like ourselves or other people. Don't making tactical asset allocation bets or moving around in the markets because you're probably going to lose. So now you have to bet against the consensus to make money. Therefore, you have to be an independent thinker. The best dynamic is to have a bunch of independent thinkers. Now you've got a bunch of independent thinkers. How are they going to have thoughtful disagreement and get past those disagreements? How we have done that is the key to our success, and it's outlined in the book. So what happens with meditation, as you know, is it's just a simple exercise that allows you first to clear your head and then brings an equanimity to everythve Everything, it eliminates the stress, it eliminates the emotion.
And you do it how often? You're a busy guy.
Yeah, I've been doing it for 44 years, but I do it, twice a day, probably a third of the time, once a day, probably a third of the time, and not at all.
For 20 minutes, twice a day.
Yeah.
So you spend 40 minutes a day as part of your...
Oh, it's such a great investment. I would say that more than any other factor having any effect on my success, it's been meditation. Because the equanimity and also the creativity, because it opens between literally the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. It opens the two sides of the brains, and it allows a spontaneity, a creativity, an open-mindedness, and so it's good for not only the health because you get stress is a terrible thing, but it also is very good in terms of the clarity, and you don't get the emotional hijacking, and it's great for creativity. So it's helped me a lot. It's the biggest gift I can give anyone.